Wherever you go, they go. You walk to the kitchen, they follow. You sit on the floor, they climb into your lap. You stand up, they pull themselves upright and totter after you, arms out, completely serious about closing the distance. Some days it feels like the most tender thing in the world. Other days, you would trade almost anything for 30 uninterrupted seconds in another room. But something is happening beneath the surface of that following, and it's not what most people think. Something most parents are never told about. And once you understand it, you will never look at those ordinary moments the same way again. Here is the question that almost never gets asked. What is actually happening in your baby's brain? Not, why is my baby clingy? That framing leads to the wrong conclusions. The real question is what the developing brain is doing in those moments of following. What machinery is running underneath what looks, on the surface, like simple neediness? Because there is a great deal happening. Researchers spent decades working to understand it, and most parents never hear any of it. Once you do, something shifts. The following stops looking like a problem. It starts looking like a signal, one that tells you, in real time, where your child's development is and exactly what they need from you right now. This is most visible from around 8 months, when crawling begins, through approximately age 3. But the underlying mechanisms start earlier, and their effects reach much further forward than most people expect. 1. They are not following you. They are using you. That sounds cold. It isn't. It is actually one of the most remarkable things developmental psychology has ever documented. In 1969, British psychiatrist John Bowlby published the work that would become the foundation of modern child development research, attachment theory. At the center of that theory was a concept he called the secure base. Here is what it means in practice. A securely attached baby does not spend all their time pressed against their caregiver. They use the caregiver as a point of origin, a place to venture out from and return to. They crawl away, explore, glance back to confirm you are there, then go further. When something startles them or overwhelms them, they return, re-regulate, and go again. The following you observe every day is not a refusal to be independent. It is the behavior of maintaining the conditions under which independence becomes possible. Mary Ainsworth, who extended Bowlby's work through her landmark strange situation experiments in the 1970s, found something that surprised many people at the time. The healthiest developmental outcomes were not found in babies who stayed closest to their mothers. They were found in babies who moved away most confidently, checked back most readily, and returned most easily when something unsettled them. The following and the exploring were not opposites. They were a single system. What looks like clinginess is actually the foundation of confidence. What this means is worth sitting with. When your baby trails behind you from room to room, they are not demonstrating dependency. They are demonstrating the conditions that make independence possible. The orbit around you is precisely what allows them to eventually move away from you, and the confidence with which they eventually do is built, incrementally, in every moment you are reliably there when they turn around to look. 2. Your body is a map of the world. Here is where it gets interesting. Your baby is learning right now at a rate that will never happen again in their lifetime. In the first 3 years, the brain forms more neural connections than at any other stage of human development, and a significant portion of that learning does not come from direct exploration. It comes from watching you. There is a name for this in developmental research: social referencing. It is the behavior of looking to a caregiver's emotional response as information about how to interpret something unfamiliar. You've seen this. Your baby crawls towards something new, a stranger, an unexpected noise, an object they've never encountered. And before they engage with it, they look at your face. If your expression is calm, they move forward. If your face shows tension or alarm, they pull back. They are using your emotional response as a guide to a world they don't yet have the experience to read on their own. The visual cliff studies from the 1960s demonstrated this with unusual clarity. Infants placed on a transparent surface over a perceived drop would or would not cross it based almost entirely on the caregiver's facial expression on the other side. A fearful face stopped nearly all of them, an encouraging, open expression, and the majority crossed. Your face was the deciding factor, not the drop. This is why following is not only about closeness, it is about access to information. Your baby needs to be near enough to read your expression, monitor your reactions, use you as the interpretive framework through which the world makes sense. Every time they follow you into a new room, they are bringing their primary reference point with them, and this carries a weight worth acknowledging. The expression you carry through ordinary moments, when you are tired, distracted, quietly anxious about something unrelated, is being continuously read. Not to suggest you perform emotions you don't feel, but to understand what your presence communicates and to be intentional about it when you can. 3. They are downloading everything you do. This is the part most people don't expect. In the 1990s, researchers studying motor behavior in monkeys made an unexpected discovery. Certain neurons fired not only when the monkey performed an action, but when it watched another animal perform the same action. These cells, mirror neurons, responded to observed behavior as though it were enacted behavior. In human infants, the mirror neuron system is among the most active and rapidly developing neural systems in the first years of life. What this means practically is this: your baby following you through the house is not passive observation. It is active rehearsal. Every time you open a cabinet, lift something from the counter, wash your hands, move from one task to another, their mirror neurons fire as if they are doing it themselves. They are building motor patterns, learning object relationships, absorbing how people navigate physical space. This is not incidental. Imitation learning is the primary mechanism through which human infants acquire most of their early skills. Not through instruction, through observation and internal simulation. A landmark study from developmental psychologist Andrew Meltzoff found that infants as young as 14 months would reproduce actions they had observed up to a week earlier, demonstrating that observational learning in infancy involves active storage and retrieval, not just immediate copying. Your baby is not just watching, they are filing. Every room you walk into, every routine task you complete in their presence is being encoded. You are, whether this framing feels natural or not, your baby's primary curriculum. And following you is simply maintaining access to the source material. 4. Your smell is part of why. This one surprises most parents because we tend to think of following as a visual and physical behavior. They see you move, they follow. But here's what's really happening beneath that. A significant part of what anchors your baby to you, what creates the pull back toward you even after they've wandered, is something more primal than vision: your scent. Human infants can identify their mother's scent within days of birth, not weeks. Research published in the journal Chemical Senses found that newborns showed clear orientation toward their own mother's scent over an unfamiliar woman's as early as 2 days old. The olfactory system is one of the most developmentally advanced sensory systems at birth, and its role in attachment is almost entirely absent from mainstream parenting literature. As babies begin to follow physically, scent remains a continuous undercurrent of that behavior. Your smell is part of what signals safety to your baby's nervous system, part of what tells them, below the level of thought, that the known person is close. Studies have found that babies given a worn garment in the absence of the parent show lower cortisol levels than babies without that olfactory anchor. Your physical presence is the strongest signal, but your scent carries a version of it even after you've left the room. When your baby follows you from one end of the house to the other, they are following everything about you: the visual information of your movement, the sound of your voice, and an olfactory thread they are not consciously aware of but are continuously tracking. Proximity is not a single thing. It is a full sensory system, and following you is how they keep all of it within range. 5. The following is measuring something, and this is where it shifts. Clingy following behavior is not constant. It fluctuates. There are periods when your baby barely tolerates a room's distance between you, and other stretches where they wander, explore, seem genuinely absorbed in the world around them. It happens every day, and most parents read it as mood variation or random inconsistency. It is neither. Following intensity is a real-time measure of felt security. When a baby feels safe, regulated, and confident in your availability, they venture further. When something has disrupted that, an illness, an unfamiliar environment, a transition in routine, or a period of rapid developmental growth, when the brain is under significantly higher cognitive load, they pull in closer. The orbit tightens. Developmental psychologists call this the distance regulation system. Your baby is continuously and unconsciously calibrating how close they need to be based on their current read of how safe the environment is and how reliably available you are. Research from the Minnesota Longitudinal Study found that peaks in clingy following behavior in toddlers corresponded meaningfully with periods of developmental leaps, intervals of accelerated brain growth that place higher demands on the child's regulatory capacity. The baby following you relentlessly during a developmental leap is not regressing. They are managing an accelerated cognitive load by drawing more heavily on the external regulator, you, that helps keep them stable. What feels like a step backward is often the brain working hardest. Responding with presence rather than frustration, with availability rather than distance, is what allows the developmental work to complete and the independence to return. Close following is not a sign that something has gone wrong. It is a sign that the system is reading conditions accurately and adjusting accordingly. 6. What happens when they cannot follow you? We have talked about what following does for your baby. Now consider what happens when it is interrupted. When the gate closes, the door shuts, you disappear, and they cannot close the distance. This is where the stakes become most visible. When separation from a primary caregiver occurs and proximity cannot be restored, the stress response system activates. Cortisol rises. The nervous system shifts from the calm, exploratory state that supports learning into an alert state organized around one objective: finding you. This is not a behavior problem. It is biology. The same evolutionary mechanism that kept human infants close to their caregivers, and therefore alive, is operating in your baby right now. Separation distress is not irrational. It is the appropriate output of a system correctly calibrated to understand that proximity to caregiver equals safety. Here is what most parents miss. What happens next matters, as much as the separation itself. Research from developmental neuroscience shows that when separation distress is met with responsive reunion, when the caregiver returns, reconnects, and helps the baby re-regulate, the cortisol spike resolves quickly. The nervous system learns what it is trying to learn, that separation is temporary, that you come back, that distress is survivable and ends. When separation distress is met with dismissiveness or frustration, the cortisol stays elevated longer. The corrective experience doesn't arrive. Over time, repeated unresolved distress begins to shape the stress response system in ways that carry forward into heightened anxiety, difficulty with transitions, following behavior that never quite relaxes because the underlying nervous system never quite internalized that return was reliable. The way you handle the moments when your baby cannot follow you is teaching their nervous system what to expect from the world. Every "I'll be right back" that you follow through on across hundreds of gates and closed doors and ordinary separations is building something, not in a single moment, cumulatively. And what it builds is the deep, embodied knowledge that you are reliably there, that separation ends, that the world is safe enough. That knowledge, when it takes root, is what eventually replaces the following. Not because the need disappeared, because it was answered thoroughly enough that it no longer drives the same urgency. There is something worth pausing on before we close. Every one of these moments, the following, the glancing back, the reaching up when you stand, happens in the middle of ordinary life, not in special time set aside for development. In the kitchen, in the hallway, in the middle of a task you barely registered completing. Your baby's brain is doing its most important work in the margins of your day. The baby trailing behind you through the house is not a phase to endure or a behavior to correct. It is a window into one of the most sophisticated developmental processes in human biology. Every time they follow, they are maintaining the secure base that makes exploration possible. Every time they glance back at your face, they are reading their primary map of the world. Every time they toddle after you into a new room, their mirror neurons are rehearsing. Their olfactory system is anchoring. Their distance regulation system is calibrating. It looks like following. It is, in the truest sense, learning. And the deepest thing they are learning, more than any skill, more than any milestone, is whether the people they need are reliably there. Be there. Let them follow. The independence comes, and it comes more completely, more securely, for the children whose following was met with presence rather than distance, and whose parents understood what was actually being asked. Subscribe to Mindful Parenting, new episodes every week.